PointByPatrol and received this in the mail just the other day. This is the Radium coolant tank for the FL5 Civic Type R. And if you're like me, there's nothing more frustrating than checking the level of the factory coolant reservoir in the car. I mean, you need a flashlight as powerful as the sun pressed up against that thing to see if you even have fluid in there, and if you pop the cap, it's still just as confusing as to what that coolant level is. This will help solve that problem and is one of the biggest reasons that I picked this up. That way when I'm at the track, all I have to do is pop the hood. I don't have to pop the coolant cap or anything like that, wait for the car to cool down. I can just simply look and it's going to show me exactly where my coolant level is. So this is going to be unboxing, it's going to be assembly, and it's going to be installation of this kit. And I have listened to the feedback from many of my viewers and have decided to kind of set up the video this way. I understand that a lot of folks were watching some of my install videos wondering why all they were seeing was, you know, my thick, voluptuous dump truck. And so today we're going to try to keep it from here up, the face, and then when we're installing the car, I'll have you a bird's eye view of what I'm doing as I go. So let's get started. And I'm going to try to do this in real time as best I can so that you have a good idea of how long this is going to take. Alright, got some heater hoses. Got the gasket for the coolant tank. This is the tank bracket. There's a couple bags of hardware and an O-ring in it. More hardware, some AN fittings, stickers, of course. If you're like me, I stick these to my toolbox, and you know, it helps me remember what drawer I throw something in. And we have the two-piece tank itself. So before I start disassembling anything in the car, we're going to sit here and we're going to put this bad boy together. We're going to figure this out kind of as we go along here. I don't think it's really going to be overly difficult to figure out how this thing goes together. Plus, if need be, I have instructions right here on my phone. Alright, so let's get started. Start by installing this gasket. And I will make mention that this gasket does make me a little bit nervous. You know, what if it was to fail or something like that? Then you've got a major coolant leak coming out of the center of this, but there are guys out there with FK8s using these things that aren't having any issues, so hopefully that's the case. Obviously, the hotter the car gets, the higher the likelihood that, you know, you might have a blowout just because of that increase in pressure. Obviously, you have the cap that helps regulate that pressure, so hopefully this gasket is rated for a higher pressure than the cap. Almost never get it on the first pick, just so you guys are aware. 4mm. I'm going to do this by hand instead of zipping it down with the drill. This does have a torque spec to it that I'm going to have to look up here in a second. And Radium also recommends that after a few heat cycles that you double check this. The really annoying part about that is these are on the bottom, meaning you have to take this whole thing out to double check it. I kind of wish that they put the screws in on the other side, but I didn't design it. Beggars can't be choosers. I bought the product anyways, so it's on me to do. Alright, so it's 53 inch-pounds and it's in a specific order, which makes sense. So got inch-pound torque wrench here. Set to 53 inch-pounds. Of course, problem, this is 3/8, this is 1/4 inch, and I don't think I have an adapter handy. I do have one somewhere, so I'm going to pause the video, go find that, I'll be right back. Alright, found what I needed. Alright, so here we go. One. That's one. Number two is the one here in the back. I'm gonna turn this like it is in the picture so I was backwards. It's actually 1, 2. We'll be alright since it's the center one. 3. 4. 5's here in the back. 6. 7. Alright, I'm just going to double check all of these just to make sure that I get a click on each one. So that's done. Let's see what we got next here. It'd be nice if my phone would stay awake. It's super annoying that it isn't, but it is what it is. Alright, so the next is installing, looks like my favorite part, which is going to be one of these clear tubes here on the side with these two fittings. And what these do and what they show is what your coolant level is, so that you're not constantly having to pop the cap or find a really high-powered flashlight to look at things. These also have some kind of sealant already connected to them, which is nice. And there's no torque spec that I'm seeing on these, but these are push lock hoses, so once you push this in, you want to listen for a click. I got it there, so now it won't come out unless I pull this back. And then we're going to use an adjustable wrench to kind of tighten these down. Alright, so I got that one kind of in position. I'm going to start this next one. And they do get snug pretty quick with this sealant that they've got on here, so I don't want to, again, I don't want to kill these things and maybe put a little bit too much pressure on this last one, but I ain't going back now. So, see if I can get one more rotation on this guy. Alright, I'm swinging a little bit past where I need to be so that I can hopefully bend this straw into place. Doesn't look like I'm going to be able to, so first problem that I'm running into, of course, is getting this straw into place. So looks like I'm going to have to bend a little bit further and then walk it back some, just so that I can kind of get this guy started in here. When I read the instructions the first time, it looked like this part was going to be the biggest pain in the butt out of the whole thing, because there is not a lot of flex in these straws. Goodness gracious. pull this one back. Still not enough. They make it look easy in the instructions, but again, I figured this was just going to be an absolute pain to get this thing to line up. Again, because there's just no flexibility whatsoever, and I don't have a second set of hands to help me with any of this. They even include two of them. I'm guessing they're assuming that I'm probably going to get frustrated and break one of these, which is entirely possible. I got it started. There it is, locked in place on both sides, and just as I expected, that was a massive pain in the butt, but a little bit of fidgeting, we got it. So now, from what I understand, we're moving on to some of these fittings here. So this is a drain. Again, kind of strange, and I can't really see the purpose now, but this goes on the bottom here, and I don't know why you would ever want to pull this out to drain this, but you know, it's a thing, I guess, and clearly they've thought about it more than I have. So that's going to go on the rounded side for this block drain here. They do recommend using a little bit of oil, so I've got a little bit of 3-in-1. I'm going to put some oil on the O-ring so it doesn't pinch or grab. I'm fitting a 9mm on this, just so you're aware. Not too tight on that. So this is going to be the front, so this is facing the front of the car where it says Radium there, so you can read their logo when you pop the hood. So the next thing here is to put on this AN swivel fitting. Same story on this guy, a little bit of oil on this ring so it doesn't leak, doesn't get pinched, rather I should say. Okay, so you're going to want it kind of in this orientation because this is the way that the hose comes from, and you're reusing that factory hose here on the bottom. But in order to tighten this down, it's got, let's see here. There it is, 5mm fitting here. So I'm going to tighten this down just enough. There in the center. Don't want to go crazy since it's just an O-ring, but you'll notice this can still move. And then it has this fitting here that needs to be installed to the face of it. Alright, so I'll hold this still with a bigger wrench. Hopefully this opens wide enough. That's very snug, that's kind of how I want it. So now we've got that guy on there. Now we're going to install the next fitting. Same story, there's a rubber O-ring. Where you see a rubber O-ring, make sure you put a little bit of oil. And again, I'm using 3-in-1 oil, but you can probably use engine oil and be just fine. And it's my understanding that this needs to face downwards. And that's a 4mm, just so you're aware, not 5 like the last one. There, snug. This can still move though, which is kind of nice. So if there's like engine vibration or anything like that, you know, the engine pulling back and forth, especially on this hose right here, it does have a little bit of wiggle room. So that's well designed. Got a little 3-in-1 oil on it there. Now we need to put on where the cap goes. And it has this out hose here, and it's going to go right here. There's a fitting for this, but you don't need to lubricate it, and the reason that you don't need to lubricate it is because you're applying direct downward pressure. You're not putting any kind of rotating pressure on it. So it fits inside of this groove here. Pop the guy on like that. Got a couple screws that they supply. I will add too, and I don't know how well you can see it, but here is absolutely fantastic. It comes with all the Allen sizes that you could possibly need, torques, safety torques. Just don't let any of your Euro friends know that you have this kit. They'll try to suck you into working on their, you know, miserable products or projects, just because they want you to, you know, hate yourself as much as they do when their car breaks. Trust me, I've been roped into some things that I did not want to be a part of when it came to Euro projects, and now I just don't really let anybody know that I have this kit. Let's see what size these are. 3mm. Be nice if they all kept them the same size, so I'd have to go in here and get different sizes every single time, but it is what it is. The factory radiator cap is reused on this too, just so that you're aware. You don't have to, it doesn't come with one in this kit. You just reuse what you got on the car. Still nervous with all the failure points because I've got O-ring, 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 O-ring here and here as well. And these are all places where, if not, and of course the center seam. And these are all places that, you know, you could generate it coolantly. I mean, to be fair, Honda did design something great. I mean, there's really nowhere for any coolant to go unless the thing cracks or breaks. But again, we're doing this because we want to be able to see our coolant level. And what we currently have on the car, it's not a quick, easy check. And again, if you're at a racetrack and you're trying to check your coolant after like a run session or something like that, you have to wait for the car to completely cool off. Well, you know, otherwise you're going to burn yourself. Next part's to put this guy on, and I do have to double check the orientation on that, so just a sec. All right. pretty simple. It goes just like this, and I'll kind of show you here in a second once I open these up. Of course, this is a different size Allen head, which is going to send me back to my little toolkit here. If I had to guess, maybe 4 millimeters. Yep, 4 millimeters. I'm making sure these are pretty snug because I'm not using Loctite, nor is there any mention of using Loctite, but I certainly know that things can vibrate loose under the hood. Maybe I should be using Loctite, but instead I'm just going to pretty snug on these. I don't want this thing coming loose, especially while I'm out on track. That'd be super frustrating. Alright, so there it is. That's how that bracket goes from the best that I can tell from the picture. And this thing is fully assembled and ready to go into the car. So I'll stop the video here, reposition the camera so that you guys aren't looking at my butt the whole time, and we'll go ahead and get started under the hood and get this thing in place. So yeah, be right back. All right, so we're gonna get started here, zoomed in as best I can, and we're gonna get started. I don't like too many coolant leaks. Again, I have pets, if you've watched previous videos. I hate the idea of them getting into any kind of coolant on the ground, and I usually hose everything off when I'm done anyways, but just for their safety, not so much the getting coolant everywhere aspect of things, even though coolant is gross. So there's that. As you'll notice, it didn't leak anything, which is great. I'm going to go ahead and take the radiator cap off. All right, and then we've got a couple 10 millimeter bolts holding this thing down. Looks like this AC bracket's going to have to come up because I'm going to have to remove the engine mount support bracket right here in order to get to the lower coolant hose. That wasn't too hard. That just kind of flexes out of the way. That's going to give me access to this side bolt here, which looks like it's going to be kind of a pain in the butt to get to. Way too tight. Break it loose by hand. Yeah, that's pretty snug. Let's see if I can't sneak in here with this same ratchet, otherwise I'm going to have to go grab a wrench. By the way, these are 14 millimeters. You don't want to flex these too much. Obviously, they're holding refrigerant. If you flex them too much, they might leak. But I'm able to get to this one on the side, and I'll probably just get this loose enough and do the rest by hand. Probably going to be just as much of a pain in the butt to get the thing back on there too. So there we go. Zip these out now. Be nice, possibly a wobble socket would get into that. So if you've got one, you know, good idea to use it. And I may go get one. Yeah, let me pause the video. I do have a wobble joint that I can get up in there so that I can just use the gun to get that out. So pause. All right, back with you. Let's see if my little idea works here. So if I can get this in there and hooked on this bolt, it should work for me. Yeah, that's gonna work just fine. Again, I think that's going to be a pain to put back in just because of where it's located and all the crap that you've got in the way, but either way, bracket removed. So now that that's out of the way, I'm going to bend this kind of back in place and lift up on this. Oh, spilled a little coolant. Bad bend. Here we go. So I'm going to try to orient this back, and in fact I'm going to put the cap back on here. One less place to leak. Get this guy out of my way. I'm going to pinch off this big one too, just to minimize the amount of coolant that I lose. Alright, so that's pinched off. Maybe a little further back so that I've got enough room to move that clamp off. I'm going to try to do this upside down as best I can so that I'm not losing coolant. So we'll go like that. Alright, so it's not being cooperative, but there's a quick fix for that. And that quick fix is channel locks. And so what I'm going to do here, I'm going to put in a drain pan and move this here. I'm going to try to break this sucker loose using the channel locks. Gotta go a little bit tighter. There we go. Once you hear it crack, you're usually good. And I'm not talking about plastic cracking. You'll know the sound when you hear it. But it basically breaks it loose just enough so that you can gently wiggle it off. Alright, so I did lose a little coolant out of the hose, but barely any. And now I'm going to dump what's in this reservoir into this catch can so that I can reuse this fluid. And I'm going to set this aside for now. Okay, so that was pretty easy. So now we've got to put everything back in. From what I understand, there's a bracket here. Hopefully you can see that. I'll move the camera. This bracket and this bracket are going to have to come out. They're not used at all in any of this. But you will reuse some of the hardware. So, there's that guy. Right, so this bracket's gone. Keep the hardware on the ground here. And let's see. All right, so this one's going to be super pleasant. Held in by 2 10s. One is on the bottom. I think I'm going to go with 1/4 inch ratchet. And hopefully I can get down in there just enough so that I can crack it loose and do the rest by hand. I can get this top one relatively easy. It's right there. Now that it's loose, I can get that out by hand. If you got a power ratchet too, it may come in handy because I can't move this really too much at all because of the engine mount, but I'm still able to get it just by a small margin there. So if I can get this top one out, I may be able to swivel this bracket so that I have better access to the bottom bolt that's in a really kind of precarious spot. So that's out. Nope, there's a bit of wiring harness there that's kind of preventing me from doing that. I'm going to try putting an extension on this. want you guys to know that I do actually own power tools, you know, more than just this drill. This extension's too large, so that's not going to work. I do like to do a lot of this by hand though, and I know that seems crazy because, you know, at work we use power tools all day, but when it comes to working on my own car, I kind of like to feel how things are coming apart by hand, especially on jobs like this that I've never done before. You know, if I was to go do this a second time, I'd have a better idea of exactly what I need, and likely would use power tools in that case. But you know, any time that you're feeling it out for the first time, it helps to have that muscle memory from your hands, kind of telling you what to do. It makes working with power tools a whole heck of a lot easier. But this thing is still not coming off that easily. I'd like to get it loose enough so that I can just do it by hand here, but it's not cooperating. Every time I get down in here, it's just fighting me, and it still is. I mean, it's not a particularly long screw, but what a frustrating screw. These are knurled. I'm going to see if this helps. I'll just put the socket on and see if I can spin the socket. Damn, they're sort of. Not easily. Got to release some tension on this bracket. Now I'm able to kind of get it. Here we go. There it is. So there's the screw that's kind of a pain in the butt to get to. That's out of our way now. So out of our way, out of our hair. So now we're going to put this in. And before I get crazy positioning that, I'm going to plug this in first. And I'm going to slide that clamp back up. So this does kind of flex out, which is nice because I like to put these clamps back where they were. It helps to cut down on any chance that they could possibly leak on you. If you don't put it exactly where it was, you do tend to run into problems. So almost there. A little bit more. All right, I'm happy with that. So let's see if I can then kind of tuck everything down here, back where it was. You know, this hose kind of lives down under here, and then it starts to become obvious as to how this mounts. Pretty straightforward. Getting to this top 10 looks like it's going to be kind of a pain, because you got AC line. Well, good thing is, since I dropped that, the instructions do state I only need 3 of these screws, so I better not drop another one. Go looking for that after this video. All right, so that's started by hand. Getting to that lower one's going to be exhilarating from what I can tell here. Looks like a total pain, Probably should have started with that, but I can't see. Take the top one out and start the bottom one first. All right, I was able to get that threaded. Now I'll go for the top one. Actually made the top one a lot easier there. That's good news. So I'm going to tighten those down first. Feels like the world's longest bolt for such a short bolt. All right, now that's snug. I gotta get the lower one now. You can just kind of see the daylight closing from the top, but it's not going to be any easier than that top one. It's going to be harder. So, just got to be patient. Something that I'm not always good at. Go ahead and hit this top one here if I can. Get that guy out of the way. Man, that's a tight fit. I'll double check that with the ratchet too. Didn't have great contact. Alright, that's good. And I'm going to keep working on this other one. I had to stop for a second because it was annoying me. Plus my back's starting to hurt. But I don't think I'm fully tight on it. Nope. Still got a ways to go. I think we might give up and use power tools. Be right back. Great investment. Milwaukee 1/4 inch ratchet. There it is. Done. Should have done that earlier. Would have saved you guys some time watching this extremely exciting video that I know all of you are loving right now. Alright, so that's in place. It's completely on there. That's great. Just snap that guy back in. Put this AC bracket back in place. And you know it's not a job well done unless you're bleeding. It means you really care. There we go. All right, so that's connected. We're good to go there. This guy still needs to get connected. This hose doesn't get used. They're providing a different hose. So you use the larger of the two hoses that are supplied here. They also provide these band clamps. Slide a band clamp on it. I like that these rotate, and that's convenient because they're hard to push on. One thing that you can do, and that I didn't do in this case, to help lubricate that, to push it on easier, would be use like a little bit of glass cleaner. It's perfectly fine. Anything that gets the job done and makes it a little bit easier on you is a great thing to do. So this guy's going to come out of this clasp. I'm going to remove this from here and kind of hold it high, because it may have a little bit of coolant in it. I'll pinch off down at the radiator instead. Let's see. You can see what I'm doing here. Before I pull that off, I'm going to have this hose clamp ready to stop any leak, just in case I have to shove it on there in a hurry. Alright, so that was not messy at all, which is great. Kit comes with 2 zip ties, and what they have you do here is zip tie this hose to the AC line in two separate places, just to keep it out of the way of anything. Doesn't have to be overly tight. And we'll cut these back so it looks nice. Again, I didn't go very tight on these zip ties at all, so they're literally just to kind of hold that hose in place. All right, so we got that done. There's one more hose to do, which is this one up here. This one's not under pressure, so it doesn't require a hose clamp, and they give you a fairly long length of hose here. I'm going to run it down underneath so that if for some reason it does need to puke some coolant out, if the pressure gets too high, it goes down and doesn't make a mess in my engine bay. So I like that. So I'm going to wrap that around, plug this guy in. All right, so that's on there, and I've kind of routed it down here. And as luck would have it, I just found the bolt that I dropped. All right, so this is aimed down into my fender well. Should it puke any coolant out? That way I know kind of where to look for it. Just in case it does, you can look for the evidence down there. Hose will relax over time. I don't think it's going to go anywhere though. That's looking pretty good. I'm comfortable with that. So now we got to put the bracket from hell back in, this guy. And I'm an idiot because I put that back and I shouldn't have yet, because it's just going to be in my way. Or it might not be if I use that little extension deal that I had. Long bolt goes in the side closest to the firewall. The other 2 remaining bolts are the same size. I'm going to look for the witness marks where this bracket used to sit and make sure that I line it back up how it was. I'm going to try to start this bolt a few threads by hand so that I don't run into any kind of cross-threading issues trying to get this thing tightened down. All right, there. So it's caught a few threads. Hopefully this little wobble bullshit that I've got will get in there. It's really loose, so it makes it kind of difficult to get in there. It wants to bend how it wants to bend. All right, that worked. Witness marks line up perfectly. Send those home. They were pretty tight to begin with, so I'm going to double check them with a ratchet here. That's good, I like that. With the new tank, I can almost get to that one. I'm going to have to use that wobble joint. There, nice and snug. Well, friends, I think that's just about got it. I'm going to add back some of that coolant that I lost. May need a little bit of extra since, I mean, I lost barely anything. I mean, I feel like I lost maybe a tablespoon of coolant, you know, through this whole process, but I also don't know the capacity of this container, so this may not be enough to fill it up. All right, that's pretty cool. It actually did fill up the sight hole, but at this point we need to run the car and see if that level changes. So I'm going to move the camera here so that you can see. Hopefully it's not too loud that you can't hear me, but you see right here, you can see where your coolant level is. It's blue all the way up, so I know that I have coolant at least up to here, and maybe even a little bit higher, and I'm completely fine with that. But right now, we just want to check sure that, you know, make sure that we don't have any leaks. So be on the lookout for any kind of leaks coming from this thing. You know, is it wet anywhere that it shouldn't be wet? I do have a little paper towel here because with the funnel, you know, it's not a perfect seal here. Either way, I want this thing to look nice, so I'm going to wipe it off. My finger is not wet here at the bottom, so that's a good sign. This is all nice and tight here. I got nothing there. I've got nothing at the radiator. So I'm going to go ahead and say job well done. I'm going to keep my eye on it. Obviously, drive the car after doing something like this because you may find an air pocket, in which case that coolant level will go down. But now, at least I have the confidence at the track. I can just pop the hood, take a look into this, you know, sight glass right here, and know immediately if I've got a problem or if my coolant's full. So I think, you know, end of the day, this is a great investment and just peace of mind. Again, the other factory coolant bottle, it's just too hard to see through. Most flashlights aren't strong enough, and a cell phone light certainly isn't strong enough to expose, you know, the min and max line where that coolant is supposed to be inside of that reservoir. So it just had to go. This certainly makes more sense, and it's a cleaner look. So I'm going to stick with this. Thanks for watching. Okay guys, so just real quick, and this is a sidebar. These are the 3 bolts that you should have left over. They do not have a washer on them. none of the three have a washer on them. There are 2 bolts that have washers. Those go to the side of the bracket inside of the engine bay, closest to the serpentine belt, and then on the bracket that holds the radium coolant tank. The other one looks just like this. It's the one that kind of goes closer to that AC line. So just sidebar on that, keep that in mind when you're putting this thing on. So just wanted to give you a top tip there. Enjoy the install. Hopefully it's not that bad for you. Hopefully this video helped. Appreciate it.